This candle just reminds me so much of growing up in LA.
The big question everyone's asking right now is, why?
You know what? This knife reminds me of growing up in LA.
I think they'll move to LA because Meghan is an actor, right? And then Harry can just join the cast of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Yeah. Just be like fighting on TV. I know what you said about me, Denise. Say it to my face.
Kosher salt brings me back to my days in LA. I'm an LA native. I am a Los Angelite.
They're taking a sabbatical? From what? Helping their grandma pick out hats? Get the f out of here, man.
This salt reminds me of growing up in LA. This carbon monoxide detector just really takes me back to my time in LA where I grew up.
How are you gonna take a break from being royalty? What are you doing? This is like the weirdest thing. Oh, just have to take a break. Too many people serve their guys. That's too much.
I grew up in LA. I grew up in LA.
The royal fairy tale ended the moment Harry and Meghan announced they were stepping back. Within hours, comedians on both sides of the Atlantic smelled blood. First up was Trevor Noah on The Daily Show, who cracked open the story like a piñata.
This is huge. Harry and Meghan are leaving the palace to become financially independent.
Noah's audience roared, and the joke set the template for everything that followed. If the Sussexes wanted to be financially independent, the world expected them to clock in like the rest of us. Noah's next punch landed even harder.
And you see, this is what happens when you bring the first black woman into the royal family.
That single line reframed Meghan from trailblazing duchess to the blunt friend who drags you out of bed and into a job interview. The laughter rolled and Noah kept riffing on Harry as an overgrown man living rent-free in grandma's castle.
Yeah. She looked at Harry and she's like, you need to get a job. You need a job.
Each tag drove the idea home. Royalty is only funny when it looks hopelessly ordinary. By the time he dropped the kicker,
you a grown-ass man. You can't still be living in your mama's house, Harry.
centuries of mystique had been reduced to a meme. Buckingham Palace tried to issue sober press releases about modernizing the monarchy, but comedians were already running victory laps. Their message was clear: once you abandon the crown, you'd better learn to punch a time clock, because late-night TV just clocked in early. The Sussex rebrand was barely out of the gate when Netflix lit up living room screens with a 6-hour confessional meant to sell Harry and Meghan as sympathetic truth-tellers.
No matter how hard I tried, no matter how good I was, no matter what I did, they were still going to find a way to destroy me.
Instead, it handed comedians their sharpest material since the Crown Jewels joke of 1992. American late-night hosts cued first. Stephen Colbert spent an entire monologue riffing on palace exit interviews, but the real sledgehammer came from across the pond, courtesy of British prank king Simon Brodkin. He walked on stage, eyes gleaming, and let the audience know exactly what he thought of the glossy documentary before they had time to find the fast-forward button.
I watched the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary. Now, I'll be honest with you, before I watched it, I was not a fan of theirs. Now I've actually heard their side of the story, I f***ing hate them.
The crowd's laughter was instant and brutal. Brodkin's setup framed the series as so self-indulgent that even a neutral viewer would emerge converted to active dislike. He didn't soften the blow either. He twisted it.
If you haven't seen the documentary, lucky you.
That dig landed because it crystallized a collective sentiment. 6 episodes of drone shots, candlelit kitchens, and violins felt like a $100 million humble brag. Brodkin then parodied the entire plot arc in 12 savage words.
Ginger Royal meets fit American actress. She then discovers that everything is so unfair.
Now the room was howling, and he still had one grenade left. He reminded the audience that Harry and Meghan weren't just narrating trauma, they were now demanding that British taxpayers foot the security bill they'd forfeited by quitting the job. Brodkin didn't need clever wordplay. He simply voiced the exasperation millions were posting on Twitter.
And then they complain about everything. They were complaining they had to pay for their own security. They were not happy about that. Yeah, they were very worried about their safety, which I get that aspect of things. After 6 episodes, I wanted to attack them.
The set went viral overnight, clipped and memed until even people who skipped the documentary felt as if they'd seen it. Within 24 hours, US commentators followed Brodkin's lead. Jimmy Kimmel mocked Harry's digital detox while signing a multi-million-dollar audiobook deal. Bill Maher asked if stepping back from royal duty meant stepping forward into sponsored content. The Atlantic summed up the pivot in one line: they tried to own their narrative and ended up leasing it to comedy. A pattern emerged. Every time the Sussexes explained a grievance, a punchline surfaced that made the grievance sound petty. When Meghan lamented having to curtsy in front of the Queen, TikTok stitched her clip next to footage of the Princess Diaries, and Gen Z commenters shouted, "We've seen this movie."
Harry says, how do you explain to someone who you've just started dating that they have to curtsy to your own grandmother?
How do you explain that you bow to your grandmother and that you will need to curtsy? Especially to an American. Like, that's weird.
And I'm thinking, maybe just tell her that your grandmother is the Queen.
When Harry warned of paparazzi danger outside their California mansion, Ian Moore quipped on BBC Radio, "If you don't want photographers, don't plant a vineyard that spells your initials in drone shots." Trevor Noah, who had roasted the couple with warmth just days earlier, admitted that comedians were now spoiled for choice. On podcasts, writers compared the doc's earnest string music cues to the melodramatic tinkling that always follows a reality TV breakup. The Sussexes had hoped to rewrite the script. Instead, they supplied a deluxe prop kit for every stand-up special of 2021, and that was only the second week of their new life. The codename Revelation, the flower sprinkle fiasco, and the infamous worldwide privacy tour were still on deck, each one primed to push the jokes from sharp to surgical. But before we slice into those scandals, we have to crack open the mystery of M&H, a secret so anticlimactic it became comedy gold. Late-night audiences were still replaying Simon Brodkin's stand-up blitz when Stephen Colbert opened The Late Show, wearing the grin of a man who'd just been handed Buckingham's crown jewels in a velvet joke bag. He promised viewers a secret so big you might want to sit down, then cued the tape.
If you are a watcher of the royal family and you like secrets, you might want to sit down because this is a doozy. Meghan Markle has finally revealed why she and Prince Harry call each other M and H.
Colbert let that line linger, savoring the hush usually reserved for State of the Union reveals. With exaggerated suspense, he asked the studio to guess the truth.
What could it be? A mystery for the ages.
For 30 glorious seconds, the crowd toyed with theories, clandestine crypto keys, MI5 codenames, maybe even a nod to James Bond. Colbert finally unveiled his own expert analysis, insisting the letters were numerological breadcrumbs. M is the 13th letter, H the 8th, together 21. Deion Sanders' jersey number, obviously proof the couple light up each other's lives. He slammed his desk, cried wow, and the audience erupted.
I assumed it was for the obvious reason. M is the 13th letter of the alphabet and H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. 8 plus 13 is 21. 21 was Deion Sanders' number, and Deion Sanders' nickname was Neon Deion, obviously a reference to how they light up each other's lives. Wow.
The bit detonated across Twitter like a firework in a drawing room. Overnight, fandom sleuths who had drafted spreadsheets about royal encryption realized they'd walked into a Colbert trap. The next night, he doubled down, this time rolling the actual clip of Meghan explaining the nickname on her podcast.
But no, Markle revealed that at the beginning of us dating, when everything was in code, I couldn't tell anyone who I was dating and who was keeping the secret, so I think we were just on a letter basis.
The reveal, a mundane dating detail, landed with a thud, and that thud became comedy gold. So basically, Colbert deadpanned, they were on a letter basis. Even the camera operator snorted. Within hours, British radio satirist Rachel Paris piggybacked on the gag, confessing she once used the clandestine moniker PM for a secret love affair, then name-dropped Thatcher.
I get it. In the 80s, I dated a very famous woman whose identity I will never reveal, and only ever refer to her using our secret nickname, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher.
Wow. Y'all look good, bro.
Yeah.
Y'all look good.
That Thatcher kicker proved the joke had already crossed the Atlantic. Daytime host Lorraine Kelly replayed it, noting the palace had survived 2 world wars and 4 royal divorces, but might not survive American initials. Even normally serious royal biographers laughed, tweeting that centuries of mystique had been reduced to a Scrabble game. What stung Camp Sussex was how fast a tender slice of couple lore mutated into a global roast. The initials were meant to humanize them, proof that behind palace iron gates they were shy sweethearts with secret nicknames. Instead, comedians reframed the anecdote as Exhibit A in a new pattern. The couple cultivates intrigue where none exists, then acts shocked when intrigue becomes mockery.
And he'll say M and you'll say H and your friends say M and it just is a thing.
It's a thing.
And do you both love it?
Yes, and I like nicknames a lot.
Podcast host Nicole Byer cracked that her own partner just calls her babe, no cryptography required, adding, boom, mystery solved. Listeners wrote in admitting they tried assigning clandestine letters at brunch, only to feel like failed Bond villains. Reporters soon asked palace aides if other royals used covert codes. One ex-staffer deadpanned that Princess Anne answers to A and left it there. Translation: Harry and Meghan had fed the press a nothing burger disguised as exclusivity, sharpening every comic's knife. From this moment forward, no revelation felt sacred. Every intimate tidbit was fair game. The world now waited for the next overshare, because comedians everywhere were primed to spin even a grocery list into royal satire. Comedians had already sketched Harry and Meghan as job-hunting ex-royals and codename enthusiasts, but nothing prepared the internet for the carnage that followed their attempt at a wholesome cooking show brand. The spoof that detonated across TikTok and YouTube in early 2023 came from American impressionist Alyssa Limperis, an actress famous for lampooning influencer culture. Limperis slipped into a silk blouse, draped herself in oversized rings, and unleashed a parody so ferocious that even hardened palace aides admitted, off the record, that they couldn't finish lunch for laughing. She opened with a throat-clearing power move, scolding the audience for using Meghan's maiden name as though it were a federal crime.
It's so funny you keep saying Meghan Markle, you know it's Sussex.
With the correction formalities out of the way, Limperis began oscillating between lifestyle guru platitudes and diva-level meltdowns. She barked at invisible staff about ironing a shirt 10 times, then pivoted to self-help wisdom about striving for balance. The whiplash was exquisite.
You take something really pretty ordinary and you make it extraordinary. Strive for balance, not perfection. Is this a wrinkle I see in my blouse? Who the f ironed this? I told you to iron this shirt 10 times. It looks like you only ironed it 9.
Viewers recognized the absurdity instantly. A duchess preaching mindfulness while terrorizing the help was comedy fertilizer. Limperis doubled down by whipping out canisters of rainbow garnish, her stand-in for Meghan's much-mocked flower sprinkles, a phrase that soon trended on Twitter beside gifs of actual garden centers.
Stop it. How sweet are these flower sprinkles? We can't forget the flower sprinkles. Flower sprinkles. Flower sprinkles on everything. Flower sprinkles. We need more flower sprinkles. We are literally putting flower sprinkles on every thing.
The bit snowballed when Limperis laced the monologue with relentless name-dropping about growing up in Los Angeles. Each LA native aside revealed how little the Duchess seemed to grasp the average viewer's life.
This candle just reminds me so much of growing up in LA. You know what? This knife reminds me of growing up in LA. Kosher salt brings me back to my days in LA. I'm an LA native. I am a Los Angelite. This salt reminds me of growing up in LA. This carbon monoxide detector just really takes me back to my time in LA where I grew up. Because I grew up in LA. I grew up in LA.
But the parody's lethal moment came midway through the demo. In a scene equal parts cooking and horror film, Limperis, still in character, ordered her makeup artist, whose name she couldn't remember, to slice his own hand so she could leap in as Nurse Meghan. The line skewered what critics called the Duchess's savior complex.
Okay, David, I'm gonna need you to slice into your flesh so I can jump in and be Nurse Meghan.
It was sadistic, it was surreal, and it was ridiculously clickable. Reaction videos mushroomed. One British commentator joked that Meghan's hospitality felt like Gordon Ramsay meets Misery. Limperis wasn't finished. She twisted the knife by boasting she saved sandwich scraps for the homeless, then summoned an Argentinian staffer whose name she mangled while showing off her Spanish skills. The moment revealed how parody could highlight tone-deaf charity in a single gag.
I like to save these scraps for the homeless. That's a lifestyle tip. Save your scraps for the homeless.
Finally, she name-checked the self-styled Sussex squad, framing them as a rabid fan base cheering from the sidelines. With one last scoop of garnish, Limperis declared victory, converting a lunchtime cooking segment into a battlefield of satire.
You know you've made it when you've acquired a huge fan base of bullies. Hashtag Sussex squad. Sussex.
The fallout was immediate. Limperis's video amassed 10 million views in 48 hours, eclipsing clips from the actual Netflix series it mocked. Social media analysts noted a sharp spike in hashtag flower sprinkles memes, shorthand for performative virtue signaling, while merch vendors rushed to print tea towels reading, "It's not Meghan Markle, it's Sussex." Even mainstream outlets joined in. The Guardian called the parody a masterclass in influencer cameos gone feral, and Vanity Fair ran a headline asking whether the Sussex brand had become unroastable or just overcooked. For Harry and Meghan, the parody posed a fresh dilemma: ignore it and risk looking humorless, or acknowledge it and pour gasoline on the meme bonfire. They stayed silent, but the damage was done. Limperis had distilled months of criticism into 7 chaotic minutes, proving that in the influencer era, a wooden spoon and a phone camera are all a comic needs to turn royal PR into toast. 3 years after Harry and Meghan's exit announcement, the honeymoon with Hollywood comedy was officially over. Late-night riffs had become routine, stand-up burns were a weekly sport, and parody cook-along segments now trended harder than their own Netflix trailers. But the single most damaging broadside, the moment that cemented the Sussexes as a running cartoon gag, came courtesy of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the Emmy-winning anarchists behind South Park. In February 2023, the duo dropped an episode so merciless that even monarchists gasped. It opened with a fake morning show intro filmed in Toronto, the city where Meghan once filmed Suits and where the couple supposedly first hid from paparazzi. Parker and Stone had done their homework, right down to the Canadian flag-colored set decor.
Live from the television studios in Toronto, it's Good Morning, Canada.
The Duchess's on-screen flatulence was juvenile, sure, but it fit South Park's brand of equal opportunity mockery. Every institution, high or low, eventually gets skewered. Viewers laughed, Royals watchers winced. Then the cartoon introduced the Sussex doppelgangers chanting for solitude while chasing a spotlight, a looping irony the writers hammered until it became an earworm.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
3 syllables, "We want privacy," became a worldwide meme before the episode had even finished airing. TikTok teens lip-synced the line over drone footage of Meghan's Montecito mansion. Twitter users replaced their location tags with the Worldwide Privacy Tour. The show's hosts, a hilariously exasperated pair of Canadian anchors, tried to make sense of the contradiction. How could a couple decry publicity while selling books, podcasts, and docuseries? The question hit harder because it was asked in cartoon form, making the hypocrisy look like children's programming 101. To underline that point, Parker and Stone handed the prince a book titled Way, a winking nod to Harry's real memoir Spare. They let the talk show host skewer him for condemning journalists while writing a journalist-style tell-all.
So let me start with you, sir. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, Where?
The exchange wrote itself into headline shorthand. Complain about attention? Publish a book complaining about attention. Every late-night monologue followed with their own punchlines, but none landed with the sheer visual absurdity of South Park's next move, a choreographed musical number that blasted the privacy mantra into the stratosphere.
It's the worldwide privacy tour. Come on. We want privacy! We want privacy!
By the time the animated couple hopped on a drumline-powered float called the Worldwide Privacy Tour, even neutral viewers were cracking up. Royal correspondents said privately that palace aides couldn't believe it had come to this, yet admitted the satire captured a basic truth: you can't cry intrusion when you keep opening the door. Parker and Stone twisted the knife once more by shipping their parody royals to a quiet, empty Colorado town where they pledged to live like normal people, only to out themselves again in seconds. The cartoon wife peered through binoculars at every neighbor, paranoid about who might be watching, while the prince scribbled "Leave us alone" signs on poster boards sized for a political rally.
It's so quiet and empty here. If we moved here, then people would think we're really serious about wanting to be normal.
The writers ended on that defeated promise. Privacy will be ours, right before another blast of cheering fans rolled in. The episode trended on YouTube, spawned merchandise, and pushed the phrase Worldwide Privacy Tour into Urban Dictionary by dawn. Even the Financial Times ran a Culture Desk column explaining why the satire stuck. It exposed a brand built on contradiction. In 22 animated minutes, Harry and Meghan were no longer just ex-royals facing tabloid snark. They were officially cartoon archetypes, their public statements looped into endless GIFs. Once Parker and Stone cast you in South Park, you're cemented in pop culture's rogues gallery beside Scientology, Kanye, and Facebook. The Sussex PR machine could issue clarifications, but the damage was generational. School kids would now chant "We want privacy" on playgrounds without ever having watched the real-life Netflix doc. Comedy had finished its transformation of a royal romance into a Saturday morning cautionary tale, and there were still more jokes waiting in the wings. By spring 2023, the Sussex storyline had become comedy's favorite chew toy. A single scroll through YouTube looked like a roast battle playlist. Andrew Schultz barking that 1775 was the last time we cared about the royals. Nikki Glazer riffing that if Meghan hadn't snagged a prince, she'd be Meghan M from Oak's barista. And Joe Rogan recounting the day he woke up half naked to find Harry calling him dangerous on morning television. Late night had done its damage, cartoon satire had poured on gasoline, and now stand-up comics were lighting individual matches. Schultz set the tone in a sold-out New York theater, pacing the stage like an unhinged history professor. He reminded the crowd that America fought a war precisely to avoid caring about Windsor drama. "Royalty? We threw their tea in the harbor," he shouted, "and we'll throw their Netflix passwords in right after it." Clips of the rant rocketed across Instagram Reels, each punchline edited with patriotic fireworks. The Sussexes' request for nuanced understanding had officially drowned beneath a red, white, and blue laugh track. Enter Nikki Glazer, queen of the savage aside, who told a Chicago audience she'd binge-watch Suits just to calculate how many seasons it took Meghan to land a real-life crown. Her verdict: 7. Because Hallmark takes too long to greenlight. The room doubled over. Glazer wasn't attacking race, wealth, or trauma. She was skewering aspiration itself. the notion that a Hollywood starlet could trade upward into global reverence without incurring comedic tax. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan weaponized his podcast's 3-hour sprawl to dissect Harry's critiques of online misinformation. Rogan replayed Harry's warning about dangerous podcasters, then raised an eyebrow so skeptical it practically sprouted a question mark. "Did I?" Rogan murmured, mock innocent. "I might have." The bit spoke to a growing sentiment. The prince, once beloved for Afghan frontline candor, now sounded like a scold broadcasting from a cashmere safe room. But no stand-up captured the petty luxury angle better than British comic Fern Brady. She described watching Meghan's lifestyle show and nearly choking on her Tesco sandwich when the Duchess threw a fit over generic groceries. Brady reenacted the meltdown, tossing an invisible jar across the stage while shrieking,
Who got the Kroger peanut butter? It's not even organic. I thought they gave us $50 million to make this show.
The audience howled as Brady mimed sniffing an imaginary organic certified lid. "I didn't know peanut butter could cause class warfare," she deadpanned. Within hours, the Kroger jar became an internet shorthand for privilege blindness. Hashtag peanut butter gate trended just below hashtag flour sprinkles on Twitter's UK feed. Collectively, these sets did more than clown aristocratic excess. They reframed Harry and Meghan as unintentional caricatures of celebrity grievance. Every new interview clip was scrutinized for meme potential. Every charitable soundbite decoded for hidden vanity. Comics weren't simply tagging jokes onto royal headlines. They were writing the headlines, shaping audience perception before traditional newsrooms could publish their measured think pieces. The Sussex camp tried strategic silence, betting the punchlines would fade once comics exhausted the material. Instead, each quiet patch only spurred fresh creativity. Rogan invited Bill Burr to muse about genetic lottery winners complaining about the paparazzi, while Fern Brady's set got remixed into TikTok POV skits filmed in supermarket aisles. Harry's forthcoming media appearances were now advertised by promoters with tongue-in-cheek disclaimers. No peanut butter will be harmed during this interview. Comedy had reached critical mass. Stand-ups, podcasters, and improv troupes were feeding on one another's bits, building an echo chamber so loud it became the public's default soundtrack to any Sussex headline. And looming just ahead was the darkest joke of them all. A quip about royal succession so incendiary, it sparked an overnight Ofcom complaint surge and forced primetime hosts to issue on-air clarifications. But before we light that final fuse, we need to revisit the very question those comics couldn't stop asking. If privacy was the goal, why did every step the couple took feel like a spotlight rehearsal? With stand-up brigades torching every fresh soundbite, Harry and Meghan tried a softer pivot, projecting themselves as small-town newbies seeking a life away from the noise. Their PR team hinted, through friendly outlets, that the couple had discovered an off-the-grid haven where farmers markets outnumbered photographers. But satire's radar pinged again when South Park revisited the pair's escape fantasy, painting them as nomads dragging a neon searchlight that blared, "Look at us." The scene opened on their cartoon avatars gazing over an idyllic street, swooning at the hush that apparently proved their sincerity.
Look at this town. There's just something about it. Oh, darling, I think this might be the place. You really think so?
The gag worked because it amplified a glaring contradiction. Every time the Sussexes vowed to disappear, they re-emerged with a new production deal. Late-night host John Oliver piled on. He played the South Park clip, then mimicked Harry whispering, "Sweetheart, it's so peaceful. Should I ring Netflix about a docu-series on our piece?" The studio cracked up, but the harshest blow arrived courtesy of Jimmy Carr, the British comic renowned for nuking taboo lines. During a London theater set, Carr framed the royal succession as a dystopian thriller. He paced the stage, lowered his voice, and asked the audience to imagine the worst-case scenario if tragedy struck the Cambridge.
Something terrible happened to William and Kate and the kids, right? The Queen and Charles are very old, they're going to go at some stage, and then you're left with King Andrew. No one wants that.
Gasps mingled with nervous chuckles. Carr had name-checked Prince Andrew, forever linked to scandals the palace praise forgotten, and rammed him into the throne room, hypothetically vacated by William, Kate, and their children. It was too dark for morning television, but clips went viral anyway. Ofcom logged a spike in complaints. Tabloids debated whether Carr's line constituted hate speech or mere gallows humor. Regardless, the damage was done. By juxtaposing the Sussex exit with a nightmare King Andrew timeline, Carr sold audiences on the idea that Harry's abdication didn't just bruise royal protocol, it played Russian roulette with the monarchy's future. The bit detonated abroad as well. The View sampled the joke, bleeped, prompting Whoopi Goldberg to sigh, "When comedians start running coronation math, you know the PR tour has failed." Twitter threads erupted with flowcharts, half in jest, half in genuine panic, mapping the Windsor family tree like a Game of Thrones death pool. Conspiracy influencers chalked up millions of views pondering if Parliament would bypass an Andrew regency. The Sussexes had never intended to fan succession paranoia, yet Carr's 20-second zinger engraved that anxiety into pop culture. Meanwhile, the couple's quiet town hope chest exploded in meme form. TikTok creators filmed themselves tiptoeing through empty cul-de-sacs, chanting, "We want privacy," while brandishing selfie sticks. Even local US news stations aired segments where correspondents visited random small towns asking residents, tongue-in-cheek, if they'd host a runaway prince for the price of boosted tourism. The underlying lesson crystallized: when private citizens repeatedly draw their own spotlight, comedy will burn hotter with every attempt to dim it. By now, the Sussexes had endured skits, stand-up meat hooks, and cartoon lampoons, but the flower sprinkle fiasco and privacy tour paled beside a new challenge: internal backlash from Hollywood allies quietly distancing themselves. That silence, comedians warned, could become the loudest punchline of all. Nothing strikes fear in a celebrity's heart like Hollywood's collective shrug, and by late 2023, the Sussexes could feel that chill. A-list friends go quiet isn't as memeable as a South Park fart gag, but it carries more career collateral damage. The first crack appeared when Oprah Winfrey, architect of the bombshell 2021 interview, politely declined to comment on Harry's memoir tour. Entertainment reporters noticed the dodge, and so did every joke writer in Los Angeles. On Jimmy Kimmel Live, the host flashed a mock group text titled Montecito Mavens, in which Oprah, Beyoncé, and Tyler Perry all replied with the same thumbs-up emoji, then archived the chat. The audience roared because the bit captured an industry reality. Once tastemakers stop defending you on air, they've probably stopped answering your calls off air. The silence deepened at award season events. Photographers who once elbowed each other for Sussex red carpet shots now redirected lenses toward newcomers like Wednesday's Jenna Ortega. E-News pundits whispered that publicists had issued gentle advisories: no spontaneous selfies, brand fatigue. Then came the sucker punch. Netflix yanked rumored plans for a second Sussex docuseries, citing creative pivots. Variety parsed that euphemism into plain English. The first show underdelivered, the second no longer guaranteed eyeballs. Cue a fresh wave of stand-up digs. Bill Burr quipped on Rogan's podcast that the couple had transformed into the Fire Festival of content, huge pre-sale, spotty on delivery. Clips of the riff flooded TikTok's For You page, racking up millions of views. Behind the scenes, insiders revealed that producers felt gun-shy about appearing in future Sussex-themed projects. One anonymous showrunner told The Hollywood Reporter the couple's narrative updates more often than an iPhone beta, making continuity impossible. Comedians pounced. At the Laugh Factory, comic Dulce Sloan joked she couldn't keep track. Last I heard they wanted privacy, now they want a cooking show. Tomorrow may be a true crime podcast about whoever stole Meghan's flower sprinkles. The line got clipped and overlaid with Limperis's parody footage of Sprinkle Mania, an edit that went viral under the hashtag Content Whiplash. Even earlier sympathizers recalibrated. Gayle King paused a CBS interview with Harry about online safety to ask if he worried constant revelations might crowd out the message. Harry smiled, sidestepped, and social media called it an on-air ghosting. Parody accounts stitched that moment beside South Park's Town Square chant.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
The juxtaposition Real Prince dodges question, Cartoon Prince belts grievances was irresistible. It summed up the year, earnest interviews drowned out by animated echoes. Meanwhile, British comic Simon Brodkin updated his 2022 Netflix rant with a new tag. He imagined Meghan scrolling through silent DMs from Hollywood power players and yelling, "Check the Wi-Fi, my empathy emojis aren't sending." Brodkin's bit underscores a brutal truth. In showbiz, loyalty often tracks box office buzz. When the laughter turns on you, friends check the forecast, and lately the forecast read overcast with 100% chance of punchlines. The Sussexes now faced a credibility paradox: speak up and fuel more jokes, stay silent and confirm they'd lost the room. Even their philanthropic announcements landed with thuds, overshadowed by comics waiting to pounce on any stray soundbite. And creeping behind all of this was a financial question no stand-up could resist. Without guaranteed streaming renewals or A-list alliances, who picks up the tab for security, staff, and Montecito upkeep? The punchline practically writes itself, especially when you recall Simon Brodkin's earlier barb about the couple fretting over protection costs.
Yeah, they were very worried about their safety, which I get that aspect of things. After 6 episodes, I wanted to attack them.
That callback reminded audiences how the saga began, a quest for independence that somehow keeps circling back to who foots the bill. Hollywood's hush amplified the irony. Silence screamed louder than any front-page headline, and just over the horizon loomed an even more precarious stage, the Sussexes' first public re-entry into royal territory since the Queen's passing. One wrong move there, comedians warned, and the joke cycle could start all over again, only this time with coronation trumpets cued for the rim shot. Buckingham Palace had not seen Harry and Meghan in official capacity since they walked away into Californian sunshine. Yet by early 2024, royal aides whispered the inevitable. Protocol required the couple to attend a slimmed-down anniversary service for the late Queen. On paper, it was a solemn family obligation. In practice, it became a global countdown clock for punchlines. British tabloids floated breathless headlines, "Will the Duke parachute in by podcast?" While US networks prepared split-screen coverage. Comedians sensed blood the way seagulls smell chips at Brighton Pier. First came the reruns. Channels dug up the South Park Quiet Town finale, where the cartoon couple surveyed a desolate street and sighed with theatrical relief.
We can have a fresh start here. Lead a normal life and have babies. Can we? Can we rally him up here and finally have our own privacy?
The clip resurfaced on Twitter every time a new seating chart rumor leaked, reminding the public that the Sussexes had once equated silence with sincerity, only to watch that silence shatter under Netflix boom mics. Talk show writers latched on. Stephen Colbert joked that Windsor Castle would distribute noise-canceling headphones so senior courtiers could enjoy that authentic Montecito hush. Across the Atlantic, Trevor Noah re-edited his original Get a Job bit into a mock training montage scored to Eye of the Tiger. Over images of Harry polishing ceremonial swords, Noah spliced the one line that has followed the prince like a ghost. The callback hit harder in 2024's Titan Belt Britain. Cost of living memes collided with palace escort price tags and laughter picked up a sharper edge. As the service approached, insiders whispered about seating diplomacy. Would the Sussexes stand shoulder to shoulder with William and Kate, or park two pews back in a face-saving compromise? Comedy shows staged mock drafts like fantasy leagues. Pick your pew! ITV's Jonathan Ross held up flashcards featuring tiny cartoon thrones, while an audience voted by applause. Betting markets opened on whether Meghan would curtsy, sparking another wave of stitched TikToks overlaying South Park's privacy chant with slow-motion curtsy tutorials. The one-liners escalated into prediction sketches. Saturday Night Live writers storyboarded an imagined cold open. Harry attempting small talk with King Charles about organic jam, only for the Archbishop of Canterbury to yell, "Save it for Hulu." Rumor says the sketch was written just in case. Proof that in comedy land, a Sussex sighting is pre-greenlit content. Royal commentators felt the tension. One veteran correspondent confided to The Times that it no longer mattered what the couple actually said at the service. Their mere presence guaranteed a week of broadcast ridicule. The Sussexes had entered a feedback loop where anticipation alone triggered punchlines, and punchlines rewrote perception before reality unfolded. It's like Schrodinger's game show. The reporter quipped, "Open the box. Are they dignified or dramatic?" Either way, the studio audience laughs. Within that charged atmosphere, every gesture risked memification. A polite nod could be spun as passive-aggressive shade. A stiff smile would signal Hollywood disappointment. The Sussexes faced a comedic minefield laid long before their flight left LAX, and each footfall promised new fodder for stand-ups, talk shows, and animated parodies alike. The anniversary service came and went with polite bows, muted hymns, and an almost eerie absence of spontaneous headlines, but the vacuum only amplified the punchlines already etched into public memory. Every major outlet recapped the stakes by rerunning the greatest comedic hits. Viewers were reminded of the moment South Park crystallized the contradiction of privacy on parade. Those cheerful birds imported from the original stand-up set chirped over footage of guards marching an audio gag, underscoring how quaint royal duty looks once you've spent years preaching Californian wellness mantras. TikTok users copied the format, dubbing bird sounds over every paparazzi shot of the Sussex convoy arriving at Heathrow. The hashtag #TweetTweetHetch was born, gathering 60 million views in 4 days. Meanwhile, UK comedians revisited Simon Brodkin's security budget mockery, reminding audiences that the couple's return carried a six-figure policing tab. Catherine Ryan cracked on BBC Radio 2 that the Met Police should adopt a Patreon tier. Pay £3 a month and get early access to body cam bloopers from the Royal Walkabout. Ryan punctuated the joke by resurrecting Brodkin's original punchline. That musical gag, once a week-long trending meme, now reads like prophecy. Each time Harry and Meghan step onto a public stage, the worldwide privacy tour anthem cues itself in the collective mind. TikTok creators stitched the clip onto fresh footage of the couple exiting St. George's Chapel, and within hours the hashtag resurfaced, racking up another 10 million views. The Sussexes' attempt at a low-key re-entry into royal life instantly triggered an encore presentation of satire they had no hand in scripting. Just as the online chorus swelled, commentators revived Alyssa Limperis's kitchen parody, the flour sprinkle freakout that turned lifestyle branding into farce. The pièce de résistance of that spoof was her final victory cry, a rally call to the very fandom Harry and Meghan once counted on for support. The line pops up whenever critics accuse the couple of courting bully culture while claiming victimhood. It's an evergreen rebuttal wearing the Duchess's own face. Late-night hosts now use the clip as an instant punch-out, introduce any fresh Sussex initiative, cut to hashtag Sussex Squad, and let the laugh track do the heavy lifting. Yet the sharpest reminder of how fragile the monarchy can feel without its runaway prince wasn't musical or culinary, it was Jimmy Carr's Succession quip. Networks replayed his set in nightly roundups, with viewers still half gasping, half laughing at the dystopian scenario he sketched. Every Rin renews the implication. By stepping aside, Harry unintentionally widened a path for the least desirable heir. It's gallows humor, but it keeps the couple's departure framed as a gamble with the nation's future rather than a harmless family squabble. No royal press release can fully counteract that image once it lives on in meme form. Taken together, these 3 clips chart the Sussex arc better than any PR timeline. First came idealistic vows of privacy, then the glitzy lifestyle pivot. Finally, the unintended constitutional anxiety themes that comedians distilled into hooks catchier than palace hymnals. Each punchline survives because it speaks to a contradiction the couple never quite resolved. Public crusaders for change, who recoil at public scrutiny. Modern moguls courting Hollywood while bristling at brand critiques. Ex-royals insisting their exit had no wider fallout, while the line of succession hangs in the comedic balance. So where does the narrative go from here? Industry insiders whisper about selective visibility, a strategy of surfacing only for bulletproof causes. Yet satire thrives on scarcity. The fewer appearances Harry and Meghan make, the more value each sighting holds for jokesmiths. The monarchy, meanwhile, continues without them. Its rituals intact, but its mystique permanently dented by late-night monologues, stand-up specials, and animated lampoons. The Sussexes may pen a rebuttal, launch a new foundation, or retreat entirely, but comedians have already filed their script notes in the public consciousness. The fairy tale carriage turned into a punchline limo, and the road ahead is lined with microphones waiting for another misstep. What do you think? Can Harry and Meghan ever reclaim the narrative? Or has comedy locked the door on their legacy? Let us know below. Tap like if you enjoyed the ride, and don't forget to subscribe. The next video on your screen is waiting, and trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.